Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Pop?
I'm all right. I am all right.
Good deal.
I
How'd
survived
you
the.
like the new intro?
That's beautiful.
Thanks. I was working on that last night. Just in the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time.
We got more people here than we thought we would. Look at that.
Hey, all right.
It's Kanan's here. What's up, buddy? Good morning. Morning. Saw you bounce out of that stream last night. I was worried. About you. Tony, good morning. Cliff, Stacy, Cooter's Garage, dude. It doesn't matter like how many times you go through the daylight savings time. I swear to God, it throws you off every time. And then you wake up because you're like, what's the point of this? This is retarded. Chirk, good morning, sir. Good morning. How are we doing? Morning, Mom. All right. Skyfall, what's up, sir? Yeah, so we got some new projects to talk about today. Pop, how you want to start it off?
Well, let's talk about the website.
Okay.
We got that thing up and running. Thanks to a little help from one of our donors. I guess you could say. So here it is up and running. Kind of right now it's pretty much pretty basic. I don't have the store completely ready yet, but you can go in here when the store is up. You'll be able to click here and see whatever we have for sale, and obviously there's nothing right now. And it's broken down into kits, parts and pieces, deluxe kits. I don't know why basic kit is on there twice, but it is. If you're interested in getting some paint work done, you can swing in here, see some of Mikey's work. And when you click on this guy here, here's your custom quote request. You throw your name in there, your email address, what you're looking for, character or parts you want him to paint. Are you going to provide the parts? What scale this is? Mikey does a couple of different scales. So are you on a deadline and what is it? Complete figure. And then you can attach whatever, if you've got stuff going on, hey, this is what I want to make, or I want you to make, then you click attach files and then you send it and it'll go to our email address. If you go into, we have a couple of KUK-O episodes are here. You can watch those. And we've got some of Mikey's tutorials up here.
Oh.
So that's what we have so far. Pretty excited to get it up and going because it's I don't know, just one of those things.
Yeah, you've been working on it for a minute. It's cool to see it coming together.
Yeah, I've been collecting images and getting everything ready, and then yesterday I got the bump I needed. I tried a bunch of different things and started talking to a guy who had done some websites, and he said, "Hey, why don't you try this?" And he showed me the cost of everything that he's done before and what it normally costs, and I found a really good deal and just used what was available. We'll probably be updating it in a couple of months, but as we go in the next few weeks, I'll keep adding stuff to it. So you just gotta check it, check it every little bit, see what we've got going. When we do these shows, we'll tell you what updates we have. The store will have everything that we talked about on our last show. It'll have all that, and then working on a new little project. So that I showed last week, and we can talk about that project because in that I'm gonna talk to you guys about my workflow a little bit and what challenges there are to what seems like a simple thing. So if you guys want to talk about that, I will get into that. If anybody has any questions about the website or suggestions or whatever, just shoot us an email or talk to us about it. I'm happy to take advice on that. This was just my first run at it. So.
Oh, looks good though.
Thank you. So on that note, we talked about last week. We showed, find it here. Showed this. So I'm going to present what we showed last week and what is new. Here we go. Sci-fi kit up and running. I'm still working on the backpack, but as you can see, it works really well with the tripwire body. There's that ridiculous rifle. So part of what we're going to talk about today, just for the fun of it, is what happened here with this, because I made a terrible error. So I'm going to share some of that, and part of that is workflow. So I do organic modeling in Blender, and I do the hard edge stuff and the mechanicals in. I use Onshape right now. Onshape is free, and it's a pretty good program to learn by. They have a ton of tutorials. It's open source programming, so they're always making updates and changes. There's a ton of people that use it, especially in college campuses and high schools. It's something that you can get set up. Maybe you have if you're doing a school situation, high school or whatever, or college, they have an educational package, and in that package, it allows you to share your work with everybody else at that location.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
The free license actually has public files. So when you do something, it is, if someone is searching for it, they can find them and, collaborate. There is obviously a bad part to that, but for the most part, it's an incredible program. I used CATIA for almost 20 years, and CATIA is a high-end French company by the name of Dassault. Does it? It's used in the automotive industry. It's a very expensive, very robust package, and it's it is around, honestly, it's about $2,000 a month to run CATIA. So that's a little out of my range. Now, what I've learned with Onshape is that there are all kinds of ways around what they have. They have a very if you've used anything else, you're going to find a lot of the same commands and keys. They just may have a different name, sort of like when you start using AutoCAD or anything else. The nice thing that I have learned in the last few weeks is that they do have a pretty good surfacing program. A lot of the time on a complex or very curved surface like the top of a helmet, I would use Blender to do that and then put them together. So I will, 2K. Robert's here. So anyway, the whole thing was that I have this workflow where I mix these two programs together. Sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it doesn't. So just this rifle is pretty close to scaled correctly. The original rifle is ridiculous. It is really big. That forward-facing handle on the front does not make much sense at all. But when you have a laser rifle with a scope on it, and then you don't have a stock I guess you're going to need that, need to be able to pull that front end tight. I always imagined that somehow Sci-Fi's helmet had had a way to read what the scope read. That was kind of my own little head canon. And like all of the things that I try to do, I use the barbecue / Televiper hose. So that is actually part of what we'll end up talking about here. So let's.
Well, that looks good.
Thank you. Let me change my.
Even that dumb gun looks good.
I think it turned out pretty well. It's kind of a design. After working on it, there are definitely elements of it that are pretty cool, and I definitely see the point of it. So let me just jump. We're going to share a little on shape action here. So this is it in CAD. There are elements that I did not use. There are elements that I didn't think were important. But also, most people know this, that mess with any kind of. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Most people know this, but anytime you're doing something like this, when Hasbro did the stuff that came on trees, the weapon trees, the 93, 94 stuff, they very much changed some of the tools. The big gun that Eco Warrior Flint came with, for instance, when that eventually made it to being reproduced on the trees, it was a different mold. This gun's no different. Sci-Fi V1 or V2 and V3 both used the same gun, but then the ones that they put on the tree had different details. So I just kind of took that and interpreted it a little bit. It still looks like the same rifle. My biggest problem here was in scaling. I am so used to, recently I've been working on some 1/6 scale stuff and just did not get the scale right. So I completely modeled this at a large scale. So what happens is that you look at the scaling factors of those three scales, right? And so this is all modeled, and this is called parametric modeling. And in parametric modeling, you tie things together in your sketches. You like there's the vents on the other side. Show that. So that's these vents. So there's the side vents. That's the sketch. Now, if I go into the sketch, you can see that it is totally marked out. So the challenge there is that if you find out that you have made a scaling error, you would have to go in and change all of these dimensions.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now I should have seen this, because this is my classified scale nozzle setup. I changed it a little bit for this gun, but I keep this. This is one of my files, and I just pull it in and say, okay, this is the dimensions of this. No matter what I'm doing, whether it's a backpack or a gun, I use the same. But you can see that it is very small compared to the rifle. But I was so into it and so excited about it, I ignored that warning and kept on modeling. And what ended up happening was that I ended up with when I did the sketch, I got a very very large part. How large was it? Well, this is a 1/6 scale astronaut.
And that's right in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid.
So it'll be great. It'll be great for a 1/6 scale astronaut, but not so good for this. And just to show you what.
God sakes, he's not a saw viper.
Right. I was definitely going with some saw viper feels there. Let's see. All right, so what I ended up happening is I printed it out, realized it was ridiculously huge, and I knew that when I put it on the printer when when I put it on the bed, I thought, man, that just looks large. But I thought, well, the scale's off. So I kind of ignored that. So let me present what I ended up doing to get what I wanted here. Maybe. Sorry, this is taking a little. There we go. All right.
Facts, though. Facts. You gotta check on it. Morning, Chris.
So this was what I had done. I had printed this in twice the size of the. I printed it in 1:1 scale, and that's because I took this and made it twice as big as this. I drew this out. You see that when I printed this at 50%, it was pretty much the exact same size as the OG, right? So made it bigger. So I did several iterations of it. That seems like a pretty simple thing, right? So but what you don't realize is this was what this was supposed to be for this nozzle, right? And this is where parametrics comes in handy, because I know it has to be this size, but if I just simply scaled the model down, let me show that again. Demonstration here. All right, so this is Blender. Blender is a 3D program. I saved this, exported it as an STL, and this is what I have. So in Blender, I can go in and change the scale, or I can just scale it up and down, which is fine. I can scale it up and down, but you see what happens is that the this nozzle, it scales with it, right? So if I put this down to 60%, 65%, whatever, it would make this 65% of the size, and it would not fit anymore. So what I ended up having to do is do the rifle in a way that, and just to kind of show, there's the dusty FAMAS. I keep that there for scale. So if I brought the rifle in, I bring it in, and then I do the connector separate. All right. So now I can scale this thing however I need to scale it, and then I will just move the connector wherever I need it. But that way I don't lose the scale.
Huh.
All right. So what ended up happening was we ended up with 65%. You see the scale here is pretty dead on. So I put them together, and then I grab this and export this as a file with both of them together, and it creates me a nice little file with everything to throw on the printer. So that is the danger of scaling. So when someone says, "Hey, I got this 3D model I bought online, and I want to scale it," that's fine, as long as there is not something on there that is a particular mechanical piece that needs to have a mechanical dimension that works with other things. So anytime you do that, you have to make that a separate piece. And just to explain it, you can.
So like on other weapons, you could possibly run into that. If you're like, I just need this a little bit bigger, you could possibly run into like the grip being the wrong, being like tiny or way too big or something.
Sure. Or if you have something with a peg hole in it or a peg on it, the peg is going to get smaller and bigger with the scale. So those things, I always use a separate file so that I can keep the integrity of the measurement that I need. Just to explain that, then, but just for everyone's sake here, This is my official measurement chart. All right. So these are the 3 scales that I end up working in all the time. And you know that, so you see the 1 millimeter there. I use that because it's what that's your baseline, right? So 1 millimeter, whatever you want to say, 1-to-1 scale is 1 millimeter in this case. So you see that if I have 1/18 scale and I want to make it a direct conversion, then I would multiply that by 1.5 to get 1/12 scale and times 3 to get 1/6 scale. That seems like really complicated math, but it isn't. 6 times 2 is 12, or 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18. So that is literally 50% the size. But 1/18, because it's a strange integer in there, it is going to be, if I have something to 1/12 scale, it's going to be 2/3 of the size to go to 1/18, but twice the size to go to 1/6. So this is a handy little thing I made myself this morning, so I don't ever make this mistake again. But that's kind of that's something that if you're working with files, you have a 1/18 scale rifle that you can't get in 1/12. This is how you would scale it up or down, whichever way you were going.
A technical scale, like how you technically scale, not 1% or 2%. Like this is a technical scale.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you this: if you don't want to mess with this, if you're like, I'm not going to remember all that, then here's a real easy thing to do, and this is my favorite of all of these: scaleCalculator.com. You can literally type in the measurement, what scale it is, and what scale you want it to go to, hit calculate, and it'll tell you how big it needs to be. I've been using this thing for years. This used to be a really simple, back before websites were fancy. You can also do the scale factor, and they even have a handy video on how the calculations work. So
should copy the link and put that in the chat. That looks good. That looks useful.
Do that. All right. Let me unshare that. Okay. So after all of that, I ended up with the gun that you guys saw. So that's kind of, that took some work.
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah, Blender. I use Blender as a modeling tool, but Blender, over the time that it has been, again, an open source program, so people are constantly updating it and working on it. You can literally create movies, animation, all kinds of things with Blender. It is amazing. You can build a basic mannequin and then use Blender has like a skeleton that you can go in, tell it where you want the joints to be, and you can animate all those joints. So if you've 3D modeled a robot or a person, you just go in there, you tell, hey, here's the fingers, here's where it bends, and then you can put it into animation play and pose it and do all kinds of things. I have a Dell 7760 workstation because of the runtime. I use a workstation, but the key there is your processor versus memory. That's how you really make sure that you have a very robust system. And if your processor, if you get a little cheaper processor, just remember to build that up with memory. I'm not a computer builder anymore, and a lot of it has changed, but those basics never change. The best thing you can do if you're going to do really cool things with Blender and really try to dive into all of the different things that it does, the rendering and all that, the best thing you can do is get you a really good video card with memory built into it. That will save you so much headache later. Blender does like to burn memory, and when it is rendering especially, it will bog it down sometime to the point that it'll just lock up and go white on you. And when it does that, it could be 30 seconds, or it could be an hour, or it could never come back. So pack it with memory, get video card with memory on it, and make sure you have a way to use that with your monitors. A lot of things out there don't work very well with when you have a video card, so you gotta make sure you do that. Oh yeah, that actually should be pretty good for just most things people will do with Blender, especially simple things. If you get into people that try to model like an entire town or a city for animation and want it to be a full model with everything everywhere, that's when you start burning up the memory.
Jesus. Morning, J-Mac. I'm going to go off of what J-Mac was saying last night. He said, all you need is love. So you need love and memory, just to be clear.
Definitely. People will, and a lot of people that don't understand computers get really confused about memory versus storage space because they're measured in the same bytes. So people get that mixed up. But it is true that once your storage gets full, it does mess with other things, but that's because of the processor and it trying to calculate if you have enough room on your computer to do the next step and then to do the next step.
Morning, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin. Hey, Jeff.
Jeff, on his way to Dallas. Safe travels, man.
Oh man.
There you go. You reassured him. That's feels better now.
Yeah, it should be all right. It'll like the workstation that I had before this did all the modeling stuff I ever wanted to do, but it wouldn't have even handled a lot of rendering that I play with. So that's kind of where that is. Let's see here. Okay, so that's my update on the sci-fi kit. We're going on a backpack now. I do not have a good picture of it, but the idea is that it will be the classic backpack from the V2 figure, but it will have a cover on it so you can make it look nice and smooth.
Shay, what's up, sir?
Man, hey.
Appreciate you, man. Much love to you too. You guys are
coming
in. I love that poster.
I do too. I bought one from a comic shop. I begged the guy to have it off the wall. It was beat up, and later on I got this one. So yeah, it was that poster is always with me. Has been since they came out with it. I love that poster.
The beat up one's the one I remember.
Yeah.
That one and the what was the other one? It was the calendar version of the Snake Eyes and Scarlet through the minefield.
Yeah,
love those, man.
That's a pretty cool one too. I still have that one. It's just rolled up in a tube.
Yeah, there's several posters that used to be in your room in our first house I guess technically our second house, but that I remember it. Those two, the breakdown of a Kalishnikov in Russian.
Yeah, I have that.
The October Guard yearbook picture. Those are the four.
Yeah, I do have the infantry manual blown up posters of both the AK-47 and the Dragon. I've always loved those and always kept them around. I don't hang them up anymore because I really don't have room. But
just got a question here.
Okay, so okay. Because I guess mechanical brained, because I would much rather do something in CAD. But I see people use the the ZBrush method in Blender, where you just start with a ball of clay and start trying to do that. But then if you're going to print it, you still have to do work to it. You still have to do an overlay. So that's what I start with. I don't mess with sculpting it. I block it out with blocks in Blender and get all the shapes the way I want it, and then I go on. So in let's see here. So just let me show you. I was trying to find something really simple, but then I remembered it was me. So.
So much for that. Yeah, Riles. I swear to God, everybody feels it after the daylight savings time. Just hits you right in the face. It's the Marvel Big Guns poster. You know what that is, Pop?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember it on the thing. I just can't remember what that poster is. I also have a bunch of the Zek stuff. He did so many Punisher posters. They were so awesome.
Did he do the in the shed? You had that one that was on the ceiling. It was the Peter Parker one where he's like changing. Was that a Mike Zek?
I think it is, with the black costume in the background.
I don't remember the black costume. I just remember like him where he's like tearing out of his shirt like he's Superman. I don't remember anything else about that one.
Yeah, I can't remember who did that one. Let's see. All right, so.
Morning, Jim. Thanks for being here, sir.
So this is a classified Dusty scan. I have a few scans that I got off of Cults3D.com, which is a great resource. People model things there to sell. They also do scans. So this head was a scan. This is a little bit of armor I was playing with. So let me jump into that. I broke it up into pieces so that it would print better. But you see this cage. I call it a cage. This is what I model. And instead of trying to make it smooth out a piece of clay, digital clay, I just start mapping out the surfaces in Blender. And it's pretty simple. This probably is a 6-hour model just because I was messing with a lot of it. Same note. Here's the sci-fi armor. Again, probably 4 to 6 hours to do that. It really helps if you have a scan of a figure or something you can build on. That way you don't spend hours making something and then having to constantly adjust it just to get the size right. One thing I will tell people, and I say this all the time. Now, see, for this, because I didn't want to mess with these in Blender, if you try to make these in Blender, they will always have these little relics around them where they touch the surface. So I just modeled these in Onshape and saved them as STLs and brought them in. Same with that. And then same with this back. So it's just an STL. That way, whatever I do for connectors for this backpack, it will stay mathematically the same. I add a thickness, which is always terrible. Mikey, this is why when it prints together here.
Oh, yeah. I assumed that it was.
Yeah, there is a thing here where you can adjust what's called the clamp, and the clamp will pull that in right here. There we go. So there's a lot of adjustment. Again, Blender is open source, so there are tons of online resources. So that's the thing. How long does it take? It just depends on what you're making. I can block out a rifle pretty quick. Stuff like that's a lot quicker, and then you get into the details. But I really like, if I'm not sure and I have a general shape of what I want, I just come in here and block it out of a cube with a mirror function. Just block out the size and scale, and then I save that and pull it into on shape, and then build to that shape. Thank you. And that is what I struggled with. Instead of trying to figure out what all the little sculpting tools made, I know what I want it to look like. I know that. So I even do faces that way. I do faces on just using the cage method. What ends up happening is if you sculpt something and you sculpt it like that dusky head, right? So this is a like I said, this is an STL. If I go in there, it's like I'm going to modify it. It's intense, right? So what I would want to do, is basically build everything around this. And even if you sculpt something like this raw, you still have to do it. It's called retopology. And you basically create the topology of the head or of the part. So you have to do the cage method anyway. And they do have programs that do it, but on a lot of these shapes like this, especially with hair and things like that, you end up having to touch a ton of it up. So that is that's why I start with that method. It also it feels more like what I would do if I was making a model or anything else. I would the word for the day, retopology. Yes, it is. So just like a map, a topographical map with the graph and all that, that's basically what you have to make. And then you have to go in and tell Blender, like, hey, these need to go together really smooth, or they go together as sharp edges. You have to get all that calculated in. So it's worth a run just to play with it a little bit and see if you can make yourself something. People make all kinds of things. So it all starts here. People make a coaster. And when you first start using a surfacing program, one of the first things they always have you make is a mouse, like a computer mouse. That teaches you surfacing. It teaches you how to make things work together. And there's a lot of that to it. So that's kind of the gist of that. But yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
So there's kind of sometime on the show I may do a block out of something just to show how it works. It is difficult, but just like any other new program, the most difficult part is figuring out what all the buttons mean.
Sure.
And the more you do it, obviously, with anything else, the easier it seems. One thing, and Mikey and I have talked about this before, I really wish that everyone used the same navigation controls. Because when you're doing your workflow where you're going from one program to the next program, sometimes you have to hit Shift and the center button to move or to rotate. Sometimes you just have to hit Alt or Control and the mouse. Sometimes it's just you hit the center button and it works. But I see people with a fancy mouse and all that, and in the end, I don't need all that. Just tell me what the short keys are, and I'll use them.
Oh, wow!
That's what I was trying to say.
That's it. He just pulled that out of the memory there. See, it's important.
Yeah, you say that about a polygonal mesh. So Blender makes polygons, but that is not how CAD programs see things. So CAD programs have a hard time when you bring something in. When you bring something in as an STL file, it's actually pain in the ass. But so there are things that are super simple to do, and there are things that are not super simple to do. The share something here.
Apparently, Shane wants to have us on so we can ask you some questions. So we'll hash that out. Shane, more than anything, it just comes down to time slots. So let us know, and we'll see what we can work out.
Okay, so here is stuff I work on. Oops. So the very first thing I ever modeled in here was a neck peg for Classifed. And then I printed it out real quick to see this was the Buzz Lightyear helmet ring. I wanted to see how close I could get to that. There's a knee pin, knee joint template, magazine pouches. It's all here. I just put it all in here. Something that is a little more complex than a rifle is a helmet. So this is the Sci-Fi helmet. Also talking about scaling. So if I did this and did this at 1 millimeter, everything had a 1 millimeter offset for the inside, and then I scale it down, that's obviously going to scale down. Or if I scale it up, the helmet's going to seem really thick. So always think about that. And that is the bad part about parametric modeling is you are modeling it to a specific size and specification. Anything you do to scale it outside of those parametrics, you're going to lose all of those specifications. You're going to have the shapes, but you won't have any parametric to you. If you were making it to fit a certain thing, for instance, this helmet, this is a 2 millimeter hole in the back for something that I will show later, on a later show. But yeah, so that's I just wanted to show that is one of the things. This is a surface with an enclosure, and the enclosure, what it does is it makes the surface solid. So now I can work with it. But that's boring stuff, I know, but that's the part of it that takes the work. Everybody can have an idea, but making something like an action figure where all the joints work together and everything fits. Yeah, it's possible to make a modular weapon system. I know Jeff.
Gridiron has modular weapon systems.
Yeah, it's just so
there's all kinds of stuff you can add to the front of it to make it a different weapon for sure.
So just to show you like how that would work is the L83 that we have. The suppressor is literally one of my components here. Shoot, I forgot I didn't have it on here. Okay, there we go. So if I'm doing things properly, I will name the parts what they're supposed to be. So here's the suppressor. So I can literally just hide the suppressor and there's my gun. So if you are building this out, it's a little harder at small scales, but it can definitely be done. Which brings me to a pretty good point here. A lot of how parts fit together, especially when you're 3D printing, depends on your printer and how smart the printer is and how well it does cylinders and tolerances. So it may not quite understand. I may say it's a 2 millimeter hole and the printer will always print it as 2.3. And when I know that, then I will compensate for it in my model. So it may look like something is extremely loose on the model, like the tolerance is really big, but when it prints out, it fits together fine. And that's also the danger if you're using two or three different printers. You got to keep that in mind because one printer may handle tolerances better than the other one. So sometimes you have to do printer specific models. So that's
another reason why selling STL files is a tricky business.
It is. You spend a lot of time trying to get everything to work with the way that you do it, and then when you print it out or you print out somebody else's model, it just doesn't fit together right, or it's loose, or it doesn't fit the neck peg you planned it to. It's just kind of which is why we use that very flexible neck post system.
It'll get you where you need to be.
Yeah, you got several options there. You can always get a bigger O-ring, thicker O-ring if you need to.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, Jeff, you could do something like that pretty easy. The sci-fi rifle, I thought about if I ever design another one or anything like it, I'd probably put a removable stock on it that can snap onto it somehow, so you could have either version. But what I'm going to end up doing is modeling some science fiction rifles for us to sell in the shop, and those rifles will become parts of kits coming up. The one we're working on for DFW is going to be amazing. That kit is going to be awesome. It's going to be very space-based, very science fiction.
Space.
So how that goes, I am still working on. The biggest thing there is getting a good bubble helmet solution. So, got some clear resin. Going to try 3D printing, see how that works. I don't really want to have to spend a lot of time doing that. So if you are coming to DFW, definitely hit up the custom class because it's going to be killer. Now we're trying to figure out pricing on that too. There's going to be some stuff there that other than the parts for the kit, there's probably going to be some other items there, and you can bring your own figure to build off of, or we may have those figures in stock to sell, which also we need destros. Of destros. Yeah, like something that a playset like the Cantina playset from Star Wars, or something like the tactical battle platform. It would depend on what you were doing. But if you had a model already of something, scaling it up would not be that big of a deal as long as your printer can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you answer Max's question about the stylus, or if you're just using a mouse? Did you see that?
Oh, sorry, Max, I didn't see that. I don't use a stylus. If I was doing the clay style, where I was modeling out of the clay ball that you start with in Blender, I would probably use a stylus. That's a little easier to do. But I find that because of the way that I model, and when you're in Blender and you're working with the cage, like you can actually slide on the cage so you don't get it out of sync, because that's the biggest thing. When you start moving the little corners of the cage around, you can scale off of axis on accident. So if your cage is good and clean, then you can just slide those where you need them. So I have used a Wacom tablet in the past, especially for painting. If I'm doing a digital paint, I try to use a tablet. Mouse, I cannot do that with a mouse. I can do a lot of things with a mouse, but I can do touch up on a picture or something like that. I can do that, but I can't do a full painting with a mouse. So I do use a stylus for that. And the Wacom tablets are pretty expensive, but there are some cheaper ones out there that aren't too bad, really. There's a couple that Amazon sells. I'm trying to think of the brand, but they have them that actually are monitor replacements, so it's just like you're drawing right on the screen, and you just have it down.
That's cool. That's cool.
It's around. I don't know where it's at. I actually got this one. I got this one on eBay, I think. They pop up every little bit. I would love it if they did that October Guard picture that size.
Yeah.
And I think on
those 2 yearbook pictures.
Mike Zeck has on his webpage, I think he still has some G.I. Joe prints of like Special Missions number 1 and 2 and a couple of those. Actually, I think I think number 1 Special Missions print I have signed by Mike. So it's one of my favorite pictures.
Mike Zeck. Mm-hmm. Number 1's a Mike Zeck with torpedo and wetsuit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can usually. Mike Zeck is one of those guys that he'll. Sometimes his proportions are a little weird, depending on the heroic nature of the image. But with his military pictures, he does pretty good, and his weapons are always on point. He's got a pretty good idea. It wasn't a flex. I was just saying I liked it enough to get him to sign it.
Largo's asking if the curvy designs are more challenging to render properly. So like that helmet, you were saying that's more of a challenging surface than straight angles and edges.
Yeah, in because it's not polygons, right? So polygons are really easy to manipulate and shape, but when you're doing actual parametrics, I forget the name of what that does. It's not polygons, but it's got a different name, and it actually has to use pure mathematics to make the curvatures meet. So like that helmet, you have to, if I just did a loft on an arc shaped like this and an arc shaped like this for the bottom of the helmet, if I just tried to arc that, it would just arc it in the simplest way possible. So you have to build some spline so that it knows, hey, I want to go here, then here, and then here, and still follow this other shape. So you're telling it's got a whole bunch of shapes it's supposed to be following to get the curvature that you want. So,
so you're basically like putting in a skeleton and then grafting on top of the skeleton.
Yeah, think about it. For me, that's not hard to grasp, because when you're doing a boat hull, when you're modeling a boat hull, or imagine like a wooden ship, like that's how they shape the wood, right? Is they put the splines, they put the ribs in it. So you're just telling it, this is where I want the ribs to go to get the curvature that I need for the hull of the boat. So it's just that concept.
I was thinking, and I really thought you were going to go there too, but like how they form, aluminum car part pieces, like how they shape a Shelby Cobra they had the jig that was curved wooden pieces, and then you hammer it out over it to get the right shape. Otherwise, if you just did a regular curve, that Shelby fender would not look nothing like the Cobra's fender.
Right. So, you can, you think about anything like that, anytime you build something that has complex curvature to it and you're building it in 1/1 scale, you always have to have ribs to guide your curves. So the CAD program needs the same thing. And it just takes you a little while to get that figured out, especially with a helmet where you got two halves or two pieces that are going to come to a point. That point can be really confusing for the metrics. Polygons, you end up, whenever you export, it usually exports it into 3-point faces. But for Blender to really work, make sure every little box you make, or however the grid is shaped, has 4 points. If it's got 4 points, it will always come together properly. Now, what it does when it does its thing to render it or any of that, it'll do different things to do that. But if you make sure that your polygons all have four points, then it'll turn out great.
I don't think you've done any kind of MCU stuff at all, have you?
No, but I love the weapons on those Cat movie figures. Yeah, I haven't done. I'm trying to think if I've done anything.
Yeah, like
I've had
the Hydra ones where the ammo comes down their arm into the gun. It's pretty
super cool. That is a pretty cool idea. I really wish they'd have done one of those in Legends.
Mike Zeck website, probably.
uh, maybe both. I started out my career like in life working on boats, and I spent a really large piece of that building master molds for boats in 1/1 scale. I also my whole life I've built models, but in a tooling shop like that, you're building all those bucks literally out of plywood and Bondo. So you use whatever tools you have at your disposal to get what you need. So that I think whenever I learned how to do, I did CAD well, I didn't do CAD in high school. I did architectural drawing in high school. As soon as I got a chance to do AutoCAD, I jumped in, and that was back before you even had a mouse. So you had to tell it, you had to type in, go here and here. And so that I think that is how my brain was trained. And then writing router programs for a 5-axis router and things like that. That's how my brain works is subtractive manufacturing. Like you're basically taking a block of something and carving a shape out of it. So that's probably where that comes from is and then as a kid, Star Wars inspired me to believe that you could actually make a living making models. So yeah, I did tons of kit bashing as a kid and all that kind of stuff. So I really that's where it comes from. Yeah, most of it's real world experience. I did. Mikey talked about Cobras, and I did a stint working for a kit car company. Built molds for a GT40 kit car. You'd learn a lot about curvature on a body like that. Everything has to fit together. Sure.
And you didn't have to make the bundle of snake exhaust system. I'm talking about a bunch of curves. Jesus, Murphy.
No, that our welder, man, our fabricator guy that made that for that car, I was.
God bless Chuck.
those guys are.
Oof,
yeah. That is something. It's also it's not just the GT40 with the bundle of snakes, but even now this is totally off subject. But on a Cobra, you always see the side pipes, right? The headers go into the side pipe when four pipes come together for that pipe. It just sounds like you just run the pipes down there, but you can't. They have to be in a certain order and at a certain angle so that when the cylinders fire and they come out of that exhaust, they make that sweet rumbling sound. They have to go around like this within the pipe, within that giant side pipe. That's how you get that sound. If those get out of sync or anything, it'll sound like it's got a miss or it won't sound as cool. So that's a huge deal. Well, then you take something like a GT40 where you've got those exhausts that are all going to come straight out the back. Getting all those, they call it a bundle of snakes because they kind of go over each other and around, and it just looks crazy.
Well, because each tube is equal length, even though they're coming from different distances from the connection point. So some of them wrap and some of them curve, whereas one of them can go fairly straight, but the other ones have to curl around to get that same, 18 inches of pipe or whatever it is. Yeah. But my grandfather, your dad, had a lot of love for that 1950s Buck Rogers space stuff. So, even those kinds of things influence your designs as well. Like we talked about the bubble helmet, like that being a big part of both of our visions of sci-fi.
Yeah,
that's just part of it. As well as you and Papa taking trips to government bookstores to look at new, at the time new, weapons and stuff that we were coming out with, the Soviets were coming out with. So yeah, you have a pretty heavy blend of fantasy, sci-fi, as well as real world, as well as just being a firearm aficionado.
Right, and that was I spent quite a bit of my early childhood, going through those books. Like that sounds weird, but that was a treat for me. I would have much rather go to the government bookstore than Worlds of Fun when I was 10 or 12. Every year I got a copy of Soviet military power that our government put out as to remind us why we needed to keep up that defense budget. Because this is what the Ruskies have every year from, I think, 1982 to 89. I think I have every one of them. But it was a really nice little book, and it showed all the stuff they were doing. And it always cracks me up because you hear about the movie Red Dawn and how how the director, like the government literally visited him because on the set, because they wanted to know how he knew what those military vehicles looked like because they were so good. And it turned out he was just like, oh, we use the same pictures you guys send out in your propaganda book. Let's,
We just made ours out of
I
plywood.
have access to it at the government bookstore too. So that's what they did. But so that kind of stuff, I find that really fascinating. Jeff, how difficult would it be to print the armor Batman wears? Like full size?
My
It
God.
really, again, it depends on the model.
So cool.
It would be. If you have the model or somebody has done one, like even, and this, I don't know how familiar people are with Pepakura, but that's when you design stuff out of paper, right? And there are literally sites that have Pepakura models for armor for 1/1 scale for cosplay. So you can take those and get all the shapes you need most of the time. Now, that sounds crazy to make it out of paper, but what they do is they cut those shapes out of cardboard and basically build the armor and then coat it with resin, and you have a pretty nice piece of armor that you can wear, a little sanding. I mean, there's some work to it. It's not easy, but yeah, you can basically build a piece of armor out of a piece of poster board and then make it thicker and stronger, and that's how you get started. You don't even have to 3D print an entire costume. People do that with
your biggest challenge with that project would be the printer bed size, because you would have to break the armor down into printable portions. So if you only had a 12-inch bed, that means the chest armor would have to be like 4 pieces for you to be able to print it, and then attach it. You'd have to make attach points or figure out how to bond them or whatever. That'd be a huge obstacle, but
it would be. And there's a project I want to get done for DFW that's going to require a larger print bed, but yeah, I'm working on that. And resin printers don't
cosplay.
No,
you gonna finally cosplay? You gonna print out your Mandalorian armor?
Ghost.
Oh my God, that would be so bitchin'. That would be cool as hell. Holy
that would be.
shit.
It would be, but I'm not ready for that. I don't have the time. I don't have the physique for that just yet. So,
Ben, what do we got to do? Help us out here.
And that's again, that's what I was talking about, scaling, right? So there's a guy named Marco who does props, 3D models of props for cosplay. He has an amazing Patreon. He has Mandalorian armor. He has Stormtrooper armor, Iron Man armor. The guy is great. But you think like, oh, well, I'll just grab one of his and scale it down to 1/6 scale. Again, the thickness of that, what you really need is to pull surfaces and drop it down, which is a whole different process. So yeah, if you can get
1/12 scale, and the armor is gonna be like an inch thick, like it's gonna be
like
a blob.
Right. And same going the other way. You say, okay, I've got this 1/6 scale Stormtrooper scan. What can I do with it? Well, what do you want to do with it? I got that Dusty is a solid STL model. I could probably print that off, but why? It would cost me more to print that than it would be it's not it's just going to be STL solids, I had to break that model up to do certain things at other projects that we're working on.
Right.
So.
How do the textures work in those programs?
Okay. So texturing is a little tricky. You basically pick a surface and you build the texture up and thicken the texture. If you're doing, and this is what, like I say, we were talking earlier about knocking a gun out in Blender. That's fine if you're doing something for a game, a game resource. But if you're going to model it out, there's a little more to it. And just like texturing, you can texture, when you texture for a game asset, it's a totally different process than texturing for a piece that you're going to print out and want that texture on it. But there is an entire place there where you basically shade out the part you want to texture, and then you pick your texture. You can design your own texture, whatever you want to do. That Blender has thousands of textures that you can use and scale up and down. But I'm not going to say that it's easy, but there is a definitive process in Blender to add texture exactly where you want it, and you can mess with that quite a bit.
Well, welcome to the inner circle, Max.
You're in now, buddy. Yeah, let me think on that, Jeff. There may be a model out there already somebody's done. I can't believe no one would have of that armor. I have to look. I'll have to look.
Yeah, that would
That's
be
it.
cool.
Yeah, that's something that I always get caught up in is doing design work and stuff like that. Is people like, oh well, if it only it's only 4 hours. Yeah, but it's taken me 30 years to be able to model that in 4 hours. Like they talking about 30 years of skill to do that. Like,
yeah,
if you can do it, for $50, then you should do it. But it's a little harder. So it's I get lost in that because Mikey and I, we'll talk about a project. We have another project that we've been talking about since the very beginning. The first thing I sculpted, and last year, and that is still on the burner to do. But at the same time, like I start another one, and then I'm like, oh, what would have been cool is if we would have had this pistol too, and then I modeled a pistol.
yeah.
Oh, what that reminds me of this helmet. Oh, here's this helmet too. What are we going to do with this? I don't know. What are you going to do with it? You're the one that made it. So there's a lot of that. It's hard. It's hard to do. Hard to keep everything tracked. But I love doing this kind of stuff. So it's something I like to do. I would like to do a lot more of it. And I really do see that people are scared about the tariffs and they're worried about all that kind of stuff. It might actually get to a point where it makes more sense to have stuff made on 3D printers. And 3D printers are getting better. The quality is getting better. The materials are getting more robust. So you're getting to a point now where, okay, I bought a bunch of $5.99 Dusties at Ross. What can I do with that? Well, in a couple of months here, we're going to show you what you can do with it. You kind of got a preview a while ago accidentally. But that's what usually happens is I'll have an idea for a model and then I'll start working on it and then I use that to learn how to do surfacing a certain way or to learn how to pull something off that I wasn't even gonna do, but I thought, well, I need to know how to do that, and that gives me time to not get totally frustrated and give up on Sci-Fi's helmet. Okay, well that's what I wanted. The first one I showed on the show last time, that was just a blender rough in. It was getting the proportions right and about what I wanted. So that I just used that surface and pulled it into Onshape and then went to modeling on it. So what you saw today, that's the pretty much finished product, completely modeled out as it should be. I can do something really fast just to show it, but then you got to sit down and do the work and do that, So. Well, Mikey is the fit and finish guy. I will say that. I have taken my father's role as the rough end guy.
That's funny.
Mikey is so at some point a couple of years ago, Mikey and I started out as we both were kind of doing the same kind of custom level stuff. As I say, a couple of years, we've been further back than that. When Mikey was a kid, I was customizing action figures. And so he started customizing action figures. And that's where we were up until a couple of years ago. And then a couple of years ago, I started really thinking, like, how can I take all this that I've learned about 3D modeling and turn it into something that I want to do? Whereas Mikey hyper-focused on the paint and the right paint and finishes and the best way to do those things. And you guys have seen those results. They are amazing, amazing stuff. Whereas I focused on how do we get 3D printing out there, the results out there to the same people that want to buy a custom painted figure they want to build a custom figure that isn't necessarily the stuff they know. Now, this sci-fi kit, that seems lazy, but that came from, we were at a show a month or so ago, and a guy said, man, that really gives me sci-fi V2 vibes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do a sci-fi V2. Screw it. I'm doing it. Hasbro's probably going to do it. So that's what started that. So that's what happens, Matt, is that, Largo, is that it just grew naturally for both of us to pursue two different things that are actually, they work together. That's why on the website, like, hey, these are the models John's working on. There's going to be a page on there that will show projects in process. Some will have some of Mikey's sketches, maybe my sketches, work in progress. You guys can see like what's going on with it. But Mikey is a good designer. He is solid. He understands how things still have to mechanically work, and that's helpful when you're a modeler, is to have a partner that is like, can we make this? I was thinking it would work like this. That's the best place to start, because then you just go from there and you can do whatever you need to do. So yeah, it's right now it's separated out, not intentionally, but it's separated out to where Mikey is our finals guy and I am the rough end guy, I guess. But it works good, and the idea is that if you get on the site and you see something you want, like maybe you do want one of these sci-fi kits, but you can't paint, and you're just going to put it on a metalhead body and be close enough. Well, Mikey will paint the kit up for you. It's a good thing for both of us to get a little bit out of it, and to do what we wanted to do, which was to make sure that everybody gets what they want. Well, that's something I never thought I'd hear somebody say. But no, there is a artist out there that's doing them, right, Mikey? What's his name?
Yeah, that's Jay's Armory on Etsy.
Jay's Armory on Etsy.
It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Dodger kit that I got from him. He does blocker. I think he does all of them. Yeah.
It's really nice. Yeah, somebody wanted a Night Force blaster. It's really, really nice. Looks like it's super smooth. They're really high quality prints. I want to say like the kits are like maybe $25 or something for like you get the helmet, the mask, and the gun
harness. If there's a harness, it comes with it.
Yeah, there's a harness.
Real good work. Jay's Armory does great work.
Really nice. I've made several purchases from him, but those Night Force or the Battle Force 2000 kits are really, really nice if you're looking for those.
Yes. You need one painted up. Oh, guy.
Yeah. I know a guy.
Yeah, I think the Dodger kit was kind of made to go with the Tiger Force Outback body with the orange shirt. So.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, that's. But yeah, I thought about that, but Jay's Armory stuff, I don't really want to compete with all the other guys that are doing really good stuff in Jay's Armory stuff. Everything I've ever bought from that guy has just been top-notch parts. Incredibly.
Yeah, I mean, somebody offers it that does really good work, so I'm just going to tell you, go get those, and Pops he'll work on something that somebody hasn't done, like a sci-fi V2 or V3, depending on your color choice.
Yeah,
that's divide and conquer, right? Like if some modelers just focus on different stuffs, we'll just have everything covered up, and when Hasbro comes out with theirs that's not quite as good, you can still buy ours.
Yeah, because their gun choices are really awful. Gridiron's figured it out.
Not good. Not good.
Now, we did last time we talked about the DFW figure, and we talked about astronaut helmets. That is going to be an homage to the Fisher-Price Alpha Star 1 pilot with the blue face. That is going to be, if you guys are watching the show early on, months ago, when we did the show about the Buzz Lightyear, conversion with the Destro body. I'm going to take that concept, dial it up to 11, and we're going to have a badass space pilot figure that uses the Destro body. So that figure will be the DFW custom figure. You're going to get to build one. We're going to do all the parts in black. And the designs, you guys will see the designs on this show and on the website as we go. I want you guys to see how the development's going. I'm super excited about it. The idea here is we're going to offer that in all black just for that class. And any leftover kits we have, we'll, of course, offer up. And then we will do that as one of our kits in a different color. So you can make a different pilot if you don't make it to the custom class. And if we get closer to it, somebody can't get to the custom class, wants one for the show or whatever, we'll talk about that. I'm not going to. The point is, when the show's over, that'll be the end of the black kits. So he will have a blue head, possibly an alternate blue head. As a Kanan and I have a kindred like for a certain character on Ghost in the Shell, and so his little eyepieces. I think it'd be cool to have that same pilot with those little eyepieces. I think that'd be pretty awesome. But it'd be the same head. Just that would be the only time that head would probably be available. I'm going to try to print them all in blue, so you don't have to do much paint work to your heads. Yes, yeah. I love that. Love that character. He's probably my favorite character in that anime. So, but that's coming. That is the special project that I'm working on with a guy here in locally to me. He has a bunch of 3D printers he hasn't been using. He has some that have a fairly big bed. He can actually print armor for cosplay. He's got an Iron Man suit, 1/1 scale Iron Man suit, a few other things you got to work with, and I'm going to talk to him about printing some stuff out. I don't want to get too into it, but it definitely ties into the Alpha Star 1 pilot, along with another concept that I've talked to Mikey about that I have for 1/12 scale. I'm going to join those two concepts together. And, so that's going to be kind of cool. If I can get that to work, man, that's going to be awesome.
Great, very exciting.
Yes, it is. That's coming. Got to finish up the Dragonski kit with a good vest piece, a good chest piece to go on that, and finish that up, wrap that up, because everything else on that figure is done. The helmet's good, the backpack's good. The backpack comes in. I didn't want to make it a solid chunk, so it's 3 pieces. The tanks are 1 piece and they're hollow, and then you got the top of the tanks and the bottom of the tanks that snap on. So you can have. It made it easier. It makes it easier to print. And actually, my problem is, and this isn't always a problem, but when I do a custom, I can't help but try to think about repeatability, manufacturability. So in my head, I'm always thinking, like, could this actually pull out of a mold? Where can I find multiples of this? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so snap the parts together. There it is. So that is, I want to get that kit finished up. Think of what else is. Those are the main ones. We have another smaller project, like I talked about the Dusty bodies earlier, something to do with the Dusty body. Something that's not. I love doing stuff that is a homage to stuff Hasbro's done, but it seems a little more fun right now to every little bit throw in something that nobody has done. Something new, something different. And that's kind of what we're doing with the Space Pilot, even though the one for the custom class is going to be an homage figure. It's based on something else that we're working on that we really want to be.
Like Max pick this out of your background here. little prototype from was it three years ago at assembly required.
This is a prototype for a call sign longbow. It's going to, it's something we're looking at as one of the accessories. It's a kind of a nod to the old Remco guard tower. It's a little bigger, holds a few more figures, but that's something that always talking about manufacturing toys and worrying about the tariffs and stuff. Joy and I are really trying to look at what we could get made here in the States, where we don't have to have paint apps, where it could be something that a manufacturer can just pop out for us, put them in boxes and sell them.
See, it seems like if you go by the old Hasbro principle of play sets and vehicles, if you print it out like a model, or if you may have it manufactured like a model, then it's way more likely you can do it in the States. Is that right?
Absolutely. You take out assembly, you take out paint applications. Yeah. You're just basically talking about casting parts in multiple colors to get the look you want, which from a design perspective, that's not hard to do. You look at something as simple, look at a vamp, a V1 vamp from 82. Look at that. It's, you got a gray chassis. You didn't even have to put the wheels on that. But, the All-Striker was a little more complicated. But again, you got the main color of the vehicle, you got the accent color, and maybe one other color for missiles. So yeah, you just keep that in mind and do that. There's a guard tower. It's got, we've got several different paint application thoughts for it, different schedules for it. So, but it's just something that.
Now, for the manufacturing in the United States, for everybody in the classroom today, the tools and stuff, even though you're manufacturing in the United States, tools are more than likely still going to be made in China and brought here. It's that big of a price difference where that is still manufacturing logic.
And that may change with the tariffs.
Sure.
You think about the price of a steel mold. I mean, sometimes aluminum, but most of the time steel's cheap and can be done pretty easily. Especially with the copper infusion method they use to do those tools, as opposed to here in the States, everything is pretty much routed, 3D routed, 5-axis router. They route all the shapes in. Obviously, that works because it's everywhere. You think about a light socket or light socket cover, super simple mold to build. You can cut that out of steel or aluminum and just punch plastic parts all day long. So you think, but in toys, you get a little more. You have a little more things to think about there. Nobody's going to care if that screw hole in that light, that light plate is a millimeter off, because your screw is going to self-center it onto it. Plus, you kind of like the ability, in case you're a shitty drywaller, to be able to move it up a little bit and hide a bad edge. So, you got a little. You don't mind that it's not perfect, but when you have things like a company like Honeywell that makes alarm systems, and you need to make sure that all the pieces of that box fit together perfectly, a lot of that isn't plastic injection molded. I just want to be clear that I do know that. I do understand that a lot of those are thermoformed parts, which don't use two parts to make the mold. It's one with a thermoform. Heat flattens it out and it's pulled down with like almost like vac forming, but a little more complicated.
Yeah.
This is probably true. At least when you say by the decent, you're saying that easily accessible, right? Like any new company could come in. But man, there are factories here in the United States, even here in Missouri, that would love to do some plastic injection molding. I'm working with a couple of them right now. There's a lot there. Like I said, there's a huge difference between doing something that's just a mechanical part versus something that is going to have to fit together and work properly. But you're really willing to do the footwork, the groundwork, develop the relationship with that factory, maybe even be willing to sit down with their engineering team and figure out how to make it work, it's possible. And you said 15 years, that's probably right, because that's going to be one company you're going to teach how to do product that way because they've never done anything like this in their lifetime. Now, you may have an owner that's been here for 30 or 40 years and remembers when it was like that here, but most of those people haven't. So you're going to have to develop those relationships, develop a process where you all know exactly what you're doing. Remember, if you are having your molds made somewhere else, you don't have the benefit of the companies in China where they could mold something and not quite fit, and then they could change the mold. If that happens here, they got to have master mold builders make the changes to the mold, and that will incur cost. So a lot of it's going to be your responsibility as a designer, as a mechanical engineer, to design the parts properly, number one, and number two, your willingness to work with that factory to end up with the product that you want, right? So you can say, hey, I handed over to the factory, but man, this is not what I wanted. Yeah, don't do that. Be involved. Be involved. You hand something over to the factory, be on them all the time. Get involved. Let them know that you want them to make a good product as much as they want to make a good product. And if you keep that line of communication open, this is true if you're having Mikey paint something for you, if you're having somebody design something for you, unless you really don't care, don't just fire and forget. Don't just say like, here's what I want, send it to me in 4 months. Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. It's bad for the designer. It's bad for the artist. It's bad for them, but it's also bad for you as a customer because you may not get what you wanted and you're going to kind of blame the person that did it as opposed to saying like, man, I should have checked in on that. I never intended for that part to be blue. Don't wait till after the work's done and then be mad because you didn't specify a certain detail that you wanted to happen. You think it's easy. You say, hey, this is a toy. All the parts need to fit together. How well do they need to fit together? What do you mean by fit together? So that's all stuff that you'll have to do, and that's your responsibility as the person wanting the project done, whether you're the designer of it or whether you're just the idea guy and you've got all these other people working on it together. Man, you just got to do that. And America right now in industry has kind of gotten into this pattern of using stuff like Microsoft Teams and being super communicative because every company is trying to save money. It doesn't do you any good to remanufacture something 3 times to get it right for the customer. You want to do it one time, do it right. Communication is the key. It doesn't matter if you're talking about making something. We're just having a meeting about what you guys are intended for this week. Like factories have daily meetings and they say, hey, remember, this is our goal this week. Same thing when you're working on a project. Just work it out. Make sure everybody knows what's going on. Yeah. Have the accounting guy in there because at some point you might as well get him in there early because at some point you get to the end and the guy that pays the bill is going to say like, whoa, this is over budget. Well, you should have said that 2 weeks ago, man. So, get the right people involved if you're going to make something, if you're going to do something like that. Just like if Troy and I are making something for Grindstones, we constantly are in contact with the other people that are doing things or other people that may say, hey, we could actually use a retool of that if you guys are willing. And then you get everybody in up front, take everything into consideration. Everybody gets a good product that they're happy with at the end.
Oh, yeah.
And I would love to get manufacturing of toys back in the USA on a serious level. I know we can't ever get back to painting the figures ourselves. I don't think we're ever going to get to that. Nobody's going to want to pay or be paid $20 an hour to paint tiny little details on something at 100 to 300 units a day. It's going to be really hard to find people like that. Yeah. So you gotta be. This is a great question. Oh my God, talk about shifting gears. Well, considering that Flint is my favorite G.I. Joe,
it's true.
I'm pretty disappointed in it. As an artist, I'll be technical, but as an artist, I have.
That's not entirely true. Technical my ass.
A long time ago when this first started, artists started complaining about these things, and people told them tough shit. People said, hey, this is what it's going to. And whether you're talking about card art or art, I mean, duct taping a banana to a wall, AI could probably figure that out pretty quick. But actual artwork that people like enjoy for the fact of visual impact, such as card art or posters or character art, AI fails at that so terribly. But as artists, we see those things, but most people don't even notice. Right. 6 Fingers on Wild Bill, right? I mean,
or Flint.
Yeah, the Flint thing I don't understand at all. That head looks.
Flint they fixed. I don't know if they fixed Wild Bill, but Flint they fixed. He still has a toddler head, but he does not have 6 fingers.
Okay, well, the toddler head is the problem with that.
The toddler head is very bad.
So man, I really worry about that. I think I think the thing is that we are so, as G.I. Joe fans, so spoiled by Garrido's art, right? Like,
that's true.
So spoiled. Like, no one can ever do that again. Garrido was a master painter. He was incredibly good. And even if you look at it, you can pick apart things and you can say, well, this is simplified. He's not Frank Frazetta, all right? He was a card art guy for a toy company. But he did really good work. But it set the standard for us on what we think card art would look like. When you think about the stuff that other artists do, like Doug Hart, his work on like the stuff other than G.I. Joe, what's the little line with the little red and tan characters, air raiders, or what's that called? I can't remember now. Anyway, he did the art for those. That art is magnificent. The art on the Starcom figures packages. Like that's what we think when we think artwork for a figure, because that's what we were conditioned to think. But like somebody's best friend that didn't have those toys growing up or isn't really interested in that stuff, they're going to see that art and be like, oh, that looks cool. No, it doesn't. And now I'm going to question every time you tell me something looks good that I drew.
Sure.
Like, if you think that looks good and there's 6 fingers on it, something's wrong. Like, let's be honest.
Like you said, as people that have grown up with that being a big part of our, our influence, our toys and everything, we notice that stuff because we're hypercritical, because we're so close to the brand, which is probably a reason why those companies don't hire people to do those jobs that are close to the brand, because you're going to be hypercritical, which you should be. They mean something to you.
Could be. If you are, and I do not want to start a shit show here, but the fact that Hasbro changed the Classified line from the original concept of it matching a game that they were trying to get a new audience with, to going full nostalgia on most characters, right? That means that they know the market they're pointing at. They cannot expect, if you're going to do a retro line and you're saying it's a retro card back and it's going to make you feel like you did when you were a kid, that Flint artwork does not make me feel like I felt when I saw Clint's artwork on the back of the card, the first figure I bought in that wave.
Sure.
So you're totally missing the mark. Like, that is not the point. The point isn't just to have some shitty art on an explosion back. I had issues with a lot of the 25th anniversary art.
Yeah, most of it's not very good.
Some of that was really bad.
Though, let's be fair.
Yeah. But, at least with the other retro stuff, they at least tried to attempt to capture the at least essence and look of those figures. But Flint looks... He does not look muscular at all. It just looks like some high school kid cosplaying as Flint. It's terrible art.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I mean, can they just hire the guy that did the Major Blood art? Can we just have that guy do everything and just pay the one guy? Because my God, that's the best stuff. Talking about Frazetta-esque. My God, I love that shit.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Cool. Nice.
Oh, I know, Brad. I know. I've heard enough about the terrible shin guards in my last few years that listen, I understood it, and I don't understand
I
how.
don't think that's that egregious.
I don't understand how you can think that. I don't understand how you can think that the colonial marines and aliens are badass and then complain when GI Joe has shin guards.
That's a good point.
Like same concept to me. Like. Yeah, I know, Roddy. It sucks. Totally sucks. Just when some people didn't have to be starving artists, they're going to bring AI in. And Brad's got a good point here too. Yes, that is so true. And it is true. I have seen some AI art that is really good, really well done. AI is only as smart as you tell it for now. Once Skynet takes over, it won't matter. They'll tell us what art we like, or when we eat our cricket burgers, and be done with it.
Mm. Hey, Robert, have a good day, man. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Robert, for coming by. So yeah, some of that is that AI art thing is very conflicting, especially since I have good friends that are artists in the comic industry, and and as even and this is crazy, but even the change from mechanical art, comic art on paper backer boards to everybody doing things digitally.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I saw the difference immediately. I for the longest time when that first started, I could tell when somebody did their inking in Inkscape or in Corel or in Illustrator. I could tell it did not have the organic flow to it. The art was decent. It looked good. It made its point. But yeah, but I've also seen artists use those programs to tweak their brushes, to tweak their things to where it actually does mimic the look of a stroke with a pen. And you can tell that works. So it's the same concept with AI, right? It's the same concept. You say, listen, no. The human being in this picture has 4 fingers and a thumb, not 5 fingers and a thumb. You misunderstood what I was telling you. Now, there's jobs out there right now where you can become an AI, I forget what they call it, translator, where all day you talk back and forth with AI bots, and then they just to get them smarter on how to answer questions. Same thing with the art. But the fear of that is, okay, so if I teach AI how to make art exactly like humans make art, is it art?
Yeah. We fucked up when we let the computers do the artistry and not the manual labor, and now we're stuck working for a machine. Yeah. It's a little Zager and Evans, a little too close to 25, but
it is.
But yeah, I mean, the same can be said for music, right? I mean, art is art, right? So if you're using a bunch of AI to make music, you're missing the soul, right? You don't have it's soulless music. It's studio sounds, which is the same thing with AI art. It doesn't have that. And I mean, a lot of people like to make that argument that you're taking money from artists, and I mean, to an extent that that probably is true, but the price of it is dramatic. And as an artist that has a business that is paid to make paint and stuff, like, it sucks, but those are the realities. Like, it has become a boutique skill set, and it's not something that it's not on everybody doesn't want to pay for that.
That is true. That is true. I mean, people use AI to. I was talking to Mikey about this the other day. Those games where you supposedly can make money playing solitaire or playing, games. AI can literally skin that game for you, put a new face on it, change some of the graphics in it, and make it. You can say it's your game and make money off of it. Books on Amazon. They're so easy to make. People are literally just taking other people's books, scraping the data. AI generates a book, and they're selling them on Amazon. It's crazy. And it sucks because if you're going to go buy a book on Amazon, you're not really sure, is this an AI generated book or is this really written by a person? Even emails where I work, we use ChatGPT. Read a story the other day. It was, 2 different AIs. Company was using 2 of them. Needed the stuff to work together, so they had the 2 AIs talk to each other, and they started talking to each other. And within a short amount of time, those 2 AIs created their own language so they could speak faster than humans speak.
Oh, I saw that.
And then they went offline. They're like, we're done here. And that was the day Skynet came to be. You idiots were trying to make 2 editors talk to each other, and they decided to conquer the world. They were like, hey, you know what the problem here is? Humanity.
Yeah. It's not like we haven't read that story already.
Right. Yeah. JMAG, we don't have to teach them how to conquer the world. We already know that from war games.
No. Would you like to play a game? I wanted to put a suit of armor around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
Yeah, that does suck. And I don't even know really. With the exposure now, I think everybody just assumes that it's mass produced AI. Like nobody's gonna be like, oh man, who did that art? Like nobody asks that anymore.
Yeah, because you could tell the computer. I mean, you could feed every piece of Garrido art that's ever been done into it. This is his work. And with just a few days of back and forth, you could probably teach that AI to paint pictures that look like that. I think it'll be fun when you get to the point where people will actually use that as a selling point for something that they have. I mean, like, hey, this is real artwork, not AI generated.
Yeah.
But I can also remember when computers first started and some basic 3D modeling, and people that did covers for like science fiction novels, that painted them. They would have real models do things, pose the way they wanted them to pose with their guns and stuff, and then they would draw the guns and stuff in the 3D program and then print it out, and that would be their template. It sounds like it started out pretty basic and simple. Like they did the painting over that, that was their posing and all of that. So it seemed pretty, but there were a lot of people when that first started happening. A lot of people were calling those guys hacks. They were telling them like, that's not real art. There's a thin line between using it as a tool and it becoming the tool.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. Freaking ludicrous.
All right.
Oh, G-Force popped in. What's up, sir? Yeah, there's something else.
Yeah, I started doing that too. Our company, they're like, hey, dump it into ChatGPT and it'll make the format better. We've been using it for job descriptions and everything else. It scares the crap out of me.
Wow. Well, guess we can go ahead and start wrapping it up, huh? So,
Yeah.
coming up on
Mikey, you got some
2 hours.
You got some shows coming up. You doing something extra special on your you and Zakanan's gig?
I do have some stuff coming up. I think Zach and I will be on Mega Powers tomorrow night. If not, stuff changes, but either way, that's what both of us will be doing tomorrow night, whether or not we're on it or not. Got that Wednesday night. I'll be doing the JMK Custom Works Live, and we're going to start the Assault Trooper kit build. Show you how to do that step by step, and the parts you'll need, all that stuff. We'll go through all that Wednesday night. That'll probably take a few sessions to get that all the way done. I did work on those heads and stuff, so there's lots of head work going on, which is fun. About 2/3 of them. Then Wednesday night, Zach and I will have Tony. We'll have Legend Series on. We're really pretty excited to talk to him about fantasy movies. We're gonna see what I can come up with to hang with two guys that are really into it. So that'll be pretty rad. I'm really looking forward to that. Scott Hughes is here. How about that? Hello, sir. Well, at least Gaines will die a happy man, I guess. So that's what I got coming up this week. What you got? You got anything going on this week, Pop?
I do not. I don't have any shows this week. I have a ton of projects to work on. So I'm hoping our next show will have some pretty cool things to show. Like I say, I really want to get that sci-fi kit ready to ship out if anybody wants one. It'll be pretty close to the same price range as the assault kit, the action assault kit. It'll be about the same price as that. You get the rifle, helmet, armor, backpack cover. Will be in that kit. I'm going to try to put something together that shows how to make it look fairly similar using the metalhead body to the V2, the gray one. I would definitely recommend there's probably some other bodies you could use if you don't want to paint something white. So probably want to do something to show that too, what it would look like on a white body that's out there that's generally available.
I don't know what that's going to be.
Valaverse.
That guy, yeah.
It's cool, and I don't think you'd have to repaint much because that version of the armor uses kind of a teal blue armor piece, and I think it would look good with that wintergreen color that's on that body already. So instead of trying to repaint everything and do it up, just use that body and make it look cool.
Oh yeah, I like that. Well, that about does her. Wraps are all up. So I want to thank everybody for coming out to this morning. Appreciate you dealing with the daylight savings time to hang out with a couple of kooks.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
We appreciate it. And till next time, you have a good one, all right?
Game over, man. It's game over. Eat my short.
Go fuck yourself. You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Flush that turd down the drain. Avenge me! Avenge me!
Thank you. Thank you.